Hello, all of our membership. This is Donna, Creef, Government Affairs Director, here today with Let's Get Real. And today we have Willo Kelly with us, and our guest today is Superintendent Dave Hallac from the National Park Service. Thank you for sitting with us today.
It's a pleasure.
I know that you're a busy guy, particularly with...
Busy on the news yesterday,
yeah.
Celebrity, yes.
Yeah. He's
I'm there, dinner, and there's Dave on TV.
We had a big day yesterday.
Yeah.
So yesterday we actually had a ribbon cutting for a brand new multi-use path. It's over a mile long. It goes from Highway 12 all the way down to the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse to Old Lighthouse Beach, which, as you know, is very popular with surfers, and also to our lifeguarded beach, which is one of 5 lifeguarded beaches.
That's been a long time in the works, right? How long has that been?
Believe it or not, we planned to build a multi-use path at the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse District in 1984.
Wow.
So this project's been a long time coming.
I was graduating high school.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Hello.
It's been a
That's
while.
been, that's been a lifetime. Yeah.
But interestingly, it was one of the first set of recommendations I got from residents and visitors down on Hatteras Island when I started about a decade ago. But as you know, these projects are expensive, these capital improvements, and we have a lot of things that we want to be able to take care of. So we got very lucky because we were able to leverage support from the Federal Highways Administration.
Right.
They actually paid the majority of the cost
Very good.
for the pathway. Outer Banks Forever, our philanthropic partner, raised
Right.
over $350,000.
Wow, that's great.
So we brought money together from a variety of different sources. We got a very generous grant from the Tourism Bureau. We got very generous donations from lots of different organizations, including Real Water Sports on Hatteras
There you
Island,
go. Local
and
community
many
support,
other individuals. I'll tell you, the Cape Hatteras Electrical Co-op was also very instrumental in the project.
Wow.
They're a good partner down there.
Great partnerships,
Yeah.
but it's amazing how much 1 mile of, is it concrete? I mean,
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's concrete, and concrete, by the way, is much more long-lasting than
Yes,
asphalt.
it is.
So
Yes,
it's
it is.
a really
They
good
had that
investment.
conversation in NAGSED with the
More
NAGSED
expensive
office.
up front, but a better
Yes.
long-term investments. But it's really more than just the path. There are benches, there are pull-out areas,
Oh,
there are educational signs. In order to do the project right, we had to replace hundreds of feet of drainage culverts, which also helped to
Okay.
drain the Flowers Ridge Road community.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so it was a big project. And so what it does is it comes all the way down Lighthouse Road. It then branches off, goes towards Old Lighthouse Beach and the lifeguarded beach, and then it goes all the way down the moon path to the lighthouse.
wow.
So the last bit of this, you are facing the lighthouse, and every 50 or 100 feet or so, there are medallions in the concrete that follow, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5 of the move.
Oh,
So
that's
you can
nice.
actually follow along with how we, accomplish
So
this
it's an
major feat.
experience. It's not just the
It is.
sidewalk. Yeah.
It's an experience. So that's part 1. Part 2 is still coming. Part 2 is we are going to take the chemical toilets, also known as porta potties,
Right.
at the 2 beaches, and we'll be converting those or removing them and building an actual restroom facility
Oh, very
right
nice.
at the intersection of both the lifeguarded beach and the lighthouse beach. And there's going to be a shower facility, there'll
Nice.
be a real restroom with flush toilets. So it's a really important improvement. It's going to be great for our visitors and the local community.
And things stuck in my brain from high school, elementary school is 1 mile equals 5,280 feet.
You got it.
So,
Yeah.
you have 52 stops.
Well,
That's
there's
funny,
the-
that one stuck in my head
Yeah,
too.
right.
1,670 yards.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
When is the construction on the bathhouse starting?
Well, that's a good question. Outer Banks Forever has really been helping us with that. And so that project is occurring because of another grant from the Visitors Bureau,
Right.
a grant from the National Park Foundation, and also a grant from the state of North Carolina. The Division of Coastal Management has these beach access grants.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, so Outer Banks
Yeah,
Forever
yeah.
basically applied for all 3. We're able to basically meet the budget for the project that's needed, and I think they're about to order the facility. It's actually a concrete prefabricated restroom.
Nice work.
And the reason those are great is because they're extremely resilient to flooding and storms. They have a concrete roof, solid concrete. I mean, the building can be
Wow.
completely flooded, and afterwards you literally hose it out.
It's
and
right
fine.
there. Yeah.
And it prevents the need for having something that's very elevated, and then a lot of the decking and ramps that's required for accessibility. Now it's accessible basically at the ground level.
Oh, very
Yeah,
good.
one of the first projects that I worked on when I worked on with the county was the bathhouse down there in Frisco. Isn't that
I
funny?
tell
that we're
everybody
sitting-
that story. Donna Creef was the one that built this for us.
I really was. It was
I know.
in Skip Dixon. Yeah, that was one of the first camera grants that I
But
did.
now
yeah.
that this path was in the works, 40 years ago,
Yeah.
41 years ago.
Yeah, that's, let's hope that the bathhouse doesn't take that long to build, yeah, so,
It won't.
very good timing on the opening of that, on the multi-use path yesterday, because that was other big news yesterday for Buxton Beach.
Very big news. So just to give a little bit of background, the area right in front of the Buxton Beach there, so just south of the last house and right up to what they call the first jetty, which is the southernmost jetty. Very popular section of beach. As a matter of fact, Dr. Beach has had it in its top 10 many years, top 10 beaches in the United States. That's an area that was used by the Navy and the Coast Guard for several decades, starting in the mid-50s up until the early 2000s. And they did important work for the state and for the country. Unfortunately, there was some contamination as a result of their use of the site, including some significant petroleum contamination. That started resurfacing in 2023, and I think the Department of Defense learned that there was a lot more petroleum contamination than they thought. There were sheens, there were odors, it was a problem.
It was a big problem, yeah.
So we brought together an interagency group, and the primary leads on these types of projects are the Army Corps of Engineers. They are the folks that come in and do remediation at what are called formally used defense sites, which are, as the name implies, areas that the Department of Defense used for important defense activities. So they came in and did some work, and more recently did a significant project. They called it a response action. They removed about 4,600 cubic yards of petroleum contaminated soil.
Yeah, I can't do that math in my
Yeah.
head.
It's a lot of dump trucks.
Yeah.
They removed almost 100,000 gallons of groundwater that had petroleum impacts to it.
Huh.
They took away thousands, if not tens of thousands of pounds of old concrete from military infrastructure.
Where did they take all that?
Yeah, they took all of the contaminated soil and water to appropriate certified
Right.
landfills that were set up for it.
Okay.
Actually, and they weren't, my knowledge, they weren't in North Carolina. And all of the rest of the material that was not hazardous went to an appropriate landfill.
Yeah, that's
they-
a big undertaking.
They made a very
Ooh.
significant effort. They made amazing progress. There is more work to be done. There are still some areas that have some contamination. So their next step is to do a comprehensive sampling, figure out what's left, and if remediation is necessary, they'll do it. But in the meantime, since they got all the concrete, they got all of this petroleum contamination off the beach, we started to ask ourselves, should we reopen that 0.3 of a mile section to the public? And of course, our first thing we did is we went to our partners, Dare County Department of Health and Human Services. We've been working collaboratively with Dr. Sheila Davies and her team since this started, and also with the U.S. Public Health Service. There are public health consultants. And so we put our heads together and said, what are the steps towards reopening? And everybody said, let's do some additional testing. So Dare County did some testing of the sand. We did some testing, sent it to separate labs. And we didn't just test for petroleum, we test for pesticides, heavy metals, PCBs, all of the potential contaminants that we knew the military used. And long story short, all of the results from the samples that the county took and the Park Service came back clean, meaning no levels that are a public health concern. And so Dr. Davies and our public health consultant said, okay, it's appropriate to move forward with public access again.
That's wonderful.
Good news for you, good news for the
Very,
community, yeah.
Very good news. Like I said, we're not done at the site. The Army Corps of Engineers is very committed to fully remediate it. Again, there are some places further back where there's lead contamination from a firing range, but a significant amount of progress that helps to return the beachfront
Yeah,
to the
from
public.
where we were 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was closed for what, 21 months?
About
What I think I
21.
read, yeah,
That's
that's
correct.
almost 2 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great that it's open right here.
And we knew that when it
Middle of
was
the season.
closed, there were certain things that were supposed to have been taking place that were not, that we now discovered, many years later.
Yeah.
And it was kind of just covered, right? And now
Yeah.
when it became exposed, it's.
You got it.
Yeah.
And really the root cause of the surprise or the erosion that let us know it was there is just that Buxton is a rapidly eroding
Yeah.
beach. And
Right.
the last two beach nourishment projects that the county performed, one in 2018 and 22, helped to keep everything back. But finally there was just enough sand that was gone
It was
that
exposed.
all these materials were exposed. There are many formerly used defense sites throughout the country, but it's very unusual for those sites to be right next to a rapidly eroding beach.
Right.
So I think it presented a very serious challenge to the Corps, and we just appreciate the work they did.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful that that's opened back up. Speaking of rapidly eroded beaches, let's talk about Rodanthe a little bit. I'm almost afraid to talk about Rodanthe, you know.
Yeah, because somehow
Yeah.
the public seems to think that Rodanthe is the entire Outer Banks.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
This is true. So we were in DC just last week for our legislative conference, and we're coming back on the train.
Yeah.
And there's a gentleman sitting there beside us, and we struck up conversation, and he said, you know, where are you ladies from? And we said, the Outer Banks. And he said, oh, every time I see something on the news about the Outer Banks, it's a house that's falling in. And
Your
we all
houses
just
are- all
were
your
like,
houses are
oh,
falling
you
in."
can't
Yeah.
believe everything that you see in the news. That's
Right.
just one little area. But it was interesting to me that he said that, granted, he was being,
Sure.
you know, trying to be funny,
That was the
but
perception.
because he said something about it a couple more times during the course of the conversation, but it was just like, okay, that once was enough. Yeah.
We've really focused on trying to be surgical about the messaging on this topic, but you're exactly right. Concerns related to threatened oceanfront structures today are very limited across the Outer Banks, and even at Cape Hatteras Seashore, 75 miles long. This is really only a concern in a few locations in northern Rodanthe,
Isolated.
and then in the Buxton area.
Right.
And today, you know, as we're having this meeting, actually the beaches are fairly stable in both locations.
Okay.
Now that could change, and
Yeah.
it does change.
Yeah, it does change.
In Rodanthe, we have at least 24 what we call threatened oceanfront structures. These are houses that are out on the beachfront. They do not have a protected dune in front of them. Some of them are more threatened than others, meaning that in some cases at high and even low tide, the houses are standing in the water. Others are fairly far back from the water, but they are out on the open beach, and with the right conditions, they could be threatened as well. In Buxton, we actually have about 16 threatened oceanfront
16?
structures,
Okay.
and we have not actually had any collapses in Buxton over the last few years, but they are also in a precarious situation. The good news is that Dare County is getting ready to perform another beach nourishment project in
Right.
Buxton, and that will help to take the edge off of that problem. In Rodanthe, we are seeing some really promising things happen. What we're really trying to do is educate and work with homeowners, because to be fair, it's confusing. What can I do? How do I do it? What permits do I need? Who do I talk to?
Right.
So we've really been working with Dare County and with the state of North Carolina to provide as much information as we can to try to assist the homeowners. So to that end, several homeowners have either proactively demolished their homes or even moved their homes over the last year, very successfully. One homeowner had an engineer certify that the house was a total loss. It could not be fixed or rebuilt, and actually had a successful NFIP claim
Oh, wonderful.
Wonderful.
before the house
Wow.
fell. And so he was able to, he got a permit from us or from CAMA,
Wow.
completely remove the house
Wow.
in a controlled situation. And if we went there today, you'd have no idea that things
Well, that was
That
wonderful that they
is
were able to
wonderful.
make that preemptive claim like that with the NFIP, because that's what we've been fighting.
Murphy
That's, you know,
introduced the legislation to look at,
Yeah.
the mitigation
Allowing
act
that,
that
just like
Murphy,
it was from
Congressman
the
Murphy,
Elton
and,
Jones Act.
and that was one of the bills that we talked about when we were in DC, about, you know, how we need to be supporting that, NAR is supporting that.
Yeah.
So that's good to hear.
That was very successful. Interestingly, that same owner also had another threatened oceanfront structure, bought a lot just down the street in the county, unincorporated area of the county there, and moved the house successfully. So,
True definition of
You know,
proactive versus
Yeah.
reactive.
we're finding quite a few owners are doing that. Now, that being said, that's a major proposition,
Yeah.
buying another lot.
Right.
Well, finding another lot to buy that you can get
Yes.
the CAMA permits for to relocate
Yeah.
into.
It is. So not everybody has that capacity.
Yeah.
So we appreciate those that are able to do it, making those efforts, and but
That's one less house.
It's tough.
To,
It is.
you know,
It is. And I'll tell you that
find in the ocean.
comforting too, because both of those houses were in really bad positions, and you know, after having 6 collapse last year,
Yeah.
it's been nice to have some
Maybe it was
some
winter.
downtime.
Yeah, what was the age of the houses, do you know? Older structures?
I think they were 80s homes.
80s, okay.
Yeah.
That's typical.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up. We get a lot of questions about, you know, what are the factors that go into whether or not the house collapses. And We look at it in two ways. You know, it comes down to vulnerability, but vulnerability is a product of two things: exposure, how close are you to the ocean and the waves, and then sensitivity. You may have an older house, interestingly, that might be less sensitive because it was built better than a newer house, but in most cases, we understand that the older houses have pilings that were not embedded as deep due to the building codes at that time.
At that time.
Yeah, and so probably those houses have a chance of collapsing more easily. The newer homes that have pilings that may be very well embedded in the soil, they can withstand quite a bit. I mean, it's amazing to watch some of these houses.
It truly is.
They persist like a pier. Like
but you never know what's what the characteristics of that house are.
You never know.
Just by the age, you can't judge a book by its cover.
That's right.
As they say.
And I think if a storm comes, and we've been very lucky with storms, all bets are off.
Well, that's good to hear that there's some proactivity going on down there in Rodanthe, that the property owners are realizing that they need to act on their own and not wait, because, and it's great to hear that somebody there at the NFIP finally clued in and approved that claim for that property owner.
Right, because it was gonna be a claim.
They could demolish that house,
Yeah, we were pleased to hear about that.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear. So we're right in the heart of summer season. We're getting away. We're about 2 weeks away from July 4th. We're gonna be here. Today's the 13th of June, so it's hard to believe that we're almost halfway through the year.
It is.
How's summer going? I mean,
summer's going really well. We actually have a slightly higher level of staffing this summer than we did last year, and every one of our seasonal staff helps and makes a difference. So we're very pleased to be fully staffed in that regard. And things are going well. Our visitor numbers are similar to last year. They're down a little bit. They're mirroring the trends that I think are being seen in Eastern North Carolina and a lot of different tourist areas. But the workload is generally still the same. We're really happy to have folks coming. They're coming to all of our popular areas. Very happy to have 5 lifeguarded beaches, and we talk about that a lot because those are the safest places to swim, and we want our visitors to be safe. We want them to know that they should love the beach, but respect the ocean.
That's right.
That swimming out in the Atlantic Ocean here is not the same as swimming in a lake or in a pool.
No, not even swimming elsewhere in the Atlantic Ocean.
So we're pleased to do that. One of the new additions over the last couple of years has been a beach in Rodanthe at the Dare County Beach Access. We partnered with the county, and so they're funding that beach, but our contractor's doing the work. So now, if you're in the Tri-Villages, within 10 minutes, there's a lifeguarded beach you can go to.
Very good.
If you're in Avon or Buxton, within a few minutes, there's a beach you can go to. If you're in South Nags Head and want to go to the seashore, you can go to Coquina Beach. And if you're in Hatteras or Frisco, you can go to the Frisco Days area that you helped to build.
That's right.
And if you're on Ocracoke, within 10 minutes, you've got a lifeguarded beach. So we have really nice coverage now. And we urge folks, especially those with kids, those that don't have confidence in their swimming ability, to first check the rip current forecast every day, but to then swim where the lifeguards are.
Providing that recreational opportunity that the National Park Service the seashore was designed to do.
That's right.
We did just hear in our board meeting from our tourism director, who he's our representative on the Outer Banks Visitors Bureau board, that people seem to be booking later, and so they're finding that in numbers at the Visitors Bureau.
Later and
where we
shorter
used
stays,
to have like a forecast of this many weeks and well in advance bookings, people are booking a little later.
Well, I think that's just the uncertainty.
And it's just the options that are out there now.
That's interesting. We manage 4 campgrounds, one at Oregon Inlet, one down at Cape Point, one in Frisco, one in Ocracoke, and we have a booking service as well. Everything is reserved through recreation.gov. I'm not sure that we've taken a look to see if we're having sort of later bookings as well, but that's something for us to look at. But I'll tell you, since COVID, our campground occupancy has really skyrocketed. Camping has just become very, very popular.
Yes.
Which is nice to see.
I have kids and grandkids.
Yeah, well, it's
love to go camping and hiking and doing all of these things.
great that you have the campgrounds for them to do that.
It is.
And now you've got the lifeguarded beaches, so, and now you've got the multi-use path where they can go visit the Cape Hatteras
Just
Lighthouse
checking all
down
kinds
there.
of boxes, Dave,
Yeah.
from where we were
That's
the
right.
last
That's right.
few years.
Yeah.
Much success.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming in and chatting with us. It's always good to talk to you and find out what's going on in the world of the National Park Service. Is there anything else that's happening with the Wright Brothers Monument or with Fort Riley or anything else? I mean, we focus so much on Cape Hatteras National Seashore, but we forget that Wright Brothers Monument is right there. How far out are we from the 125th anniversary?
We're a few years out from that.
Are you planning for that already?
We are working with the First Flight Foundation,
Yeah.
First Flight Society, and Outer Banks Forever, and we'll be engaging Kildare Hills and Dare County on that. We're also a part of the 250th Dare County Committee, and looking forward to working with the county and many other partners on celebrating that. So we've got a lot of things that we're planning for, but in terms of Wright Brothers, we have operations as normal. We have several programs that folks can come see throughout the day, and really actually excited at Wright Brothers about a partnership that we have with Dare County Schools. I don't know if you know a lot about this, but it's called the Wright Flight Academy.
Yeah, well,
So
I know some of that,
We
yeah.
converted an area about the size of this room where we used to store our John Deere mowers, because Wright Brothers is a amazing mowing operation.
I would say.
Yeah, they're out in the open now,
Yeah,
but the
yeah.
kids are not. And we converted it into what we call an aviation lab. Our staff did the work. It was supported by Outer Banks Forever. They paid for it. And the way this started was Superintendent Steve Bass and I called one day. He said, "Dave, I want to chat with you." And actually, Assistant Superintendent Blackstock as well. So we went, we sat down, and he said, "We have this idea. We want to build a plane." And I said, "Build a plane? What do you mean?"
Oh, my
And so
goodness.
he said, there's this company that provides all of the materials for school groups to build planes. The school group builds the plane, and then it goes back to the company, and they sell it to bring in revenue to keep the program going. What do you think about doing this at Wright Brothers? And-
Where else would you do
Right,
it?
and we
Yeah.
sat there and said,
Yeah.
there is no better place in the United States for a group of high school
Absolutely.
students that are learning
How
about
exciting.
science,
Wow.
technology, engineering, and math to do something like this. So we talked more. I mean, the minute he said it, everybody's eyes lit up, and we said, "Yes, we have to do this with you." So we built the laboratory, and basically there is a high school class, and for the last year and a half, they have been building
Wow.
a plane,
That's pretty cool.
a real airplane, and it's looking like sometime around December 17th, that plane will take its first flight at Wright Brothers.
Oh,
And it
that's
might
so
only
cool.
go
Yeah.
that far.
Yeah.
But that's so
300
cool,
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, this is going to be a certified, this is going to be a plane anybody can fly in. The FAA will certify it, and it will take its first flight from our airport at Wright Brothers Memorial.
So we've evolved from an automotive program at Curtis County High School that used to retrofit cars to be electric cars
Yeah.
that were flooded. So they had an automotive program that actually, built, so to speak, electric vehicles. Then we went into the STEM program in robotics, right?
Yeah.
Very big, First Flight High School, great program there, and building a plane.
That's
Plane.
just
This is amazing.
It is amazing. So it's first and foremost to be able to do this with the county and enrich the education of the students right here and expose them to the national park. That's an incredible win. But what we've also done is we created 6 short videos on this plane build. So, and we've been posting them on our Facebook site. And so what you can do is you can go and you can see what the students are building. It might be something related to flight control or a wing. And then our interpreters go back into the visitor center and look at the replica of the original flyer
So you make
and
that connection.
explain, exactly, we make the connection by what we're doing today in modern aviation with this plane build, a modern airplane, was something that the Wright brothers figured out on that ground, and you can see it in our visitor center. So it's been really exciting. It's benefiting our visitors as well.
Well, and what a great thing for those students to be able to put that on their college application
Oh,
that
yeah.
they built an airplane.
And isn't there an aeronautical school now in Currituck
I'm
through
not sure
the
about
over by the
that.
airport?
Yeah,
I think
maybe
so.
maybe so.
I
Yeah.
think there was
Yeah,
one
well,
there.
that's wonderful. Yeah, particularly if they can get it to where they can
Yeah.
fly it close to the anniversary of the
That
first
is
flight. Yeah.
incredible.
It's really great. And at Fort Raleigh,
Awesome.
business as usual as well. Lots of programs going on. Very strong relationship with the Roanoke Island Historical Association, who, as you know, every night throughout the summer are putting on the Lost Colony. They've been doing some really great work to assist us with a lot of deferred maintenance down at the theater. So over the last several years, we put in new seats at the theater. We've done things to fix septic systems, a lot of behind the scenes work that's really
That's
important
important.
to the
That's
visitor
integral,
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've made some other amazing lighting and sound improvements in the theater, and just a lot of other things that are going on to make improvements. So it's been a pleasure to work with them. But that park is open, and folks can come.
Right, yeah.
Really have a great experience that's quite a change from being on the beach. You know, you go across the causeway, you go to the north end of Roanoke Island, you see all these pine trees and oak trees. You almost feel like you might be in western North Carolina. So being in that maritime forest environment, I think is a kind of a nice, cool contrast from being on the beach side. So we find that the visitors love to come over in the middle of the week and enjoy a few hours, either at the park or an evening seeing the Lost Colony.
Yeah, we've just got so many wonderful
And many of our
historic
members may
things
not even be aware of the partnership that we had with the Lost Colony and bringing stakeholders together to get the funding from the state that they were able to secure in the last couple of years.
That funding is what I was referring to, has been so instrumental in helping to deal with some of the maintenance backlog there.
And we had a big meeting in our conference room with our state senators and others from the Lost Colony to, you know, it's a national treasure there, not just a local or state treasure. It is a national treasure.
We appreciate your support on that.
Partnerships are important.
They're very
they
important.
Yeah, and so we appreciate you coming in today. That's all I have. Willo, do you have anything that you need to add for the good of the order?
No, we're just plugging along here. Again, partnerships, very, very important, and we very much appreciate the partnership that we've had with you, Dave, over the last few years, and coming in and speaking to you know, not only our property managers and keeping them up to date on things and how we can disseminate information, you know, as needed and on a timely basis. So very much appreciate that.
If there's anything else that we can do to help you guys, let us know.
I appreciate it. I have to tell you, our partnership with OBAR has just been so helpful to us. Everything that you do to connect us to your property managers and the realtors, because the reality is, even though we might have 50 people out in the field in 3 parks along 75 miles, your membership, your teams have a higher probability of having a touch point with our visitors than we do. And so they are such good partners with us, whether it's, you know, where do you get a permit for a beach fire? How do you get an off-road vehicle permit? Or working with your owners when it comes to the threatened oceanfront structures. So we really appreciate the partnership.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. We'll be sure and pass it along.
All right.
Well, hopefully they're going to watch our podcast and hear you say it yourself.
So Donna, if real estate is your profession,
politics is your business.
that's right.
Very good.
And I think we got real today. So.
That's right.
All
That's right. Thanks so much.